Welcome to Impact Pasadena. I'm delighted to have as my guest today Kathryn Barger from the Board of Supervisors, the 5th District. Born and raised in the 5th District. She started, believe it or not, she started as an intern in Mike Antonivich's office years ago and worked for him ever since, I believe.
Almost.
Almost.
I was in college, took a break of 2 years, and then came back. Yeah.
And she became his chief deputy a few years ago.
Correct.
And then ran for election for the job in 2016. Congratulations to you.
Thank you. And now it seems like I'm getting ready to run again.
I know.
Sooner do I get comfortable than it's time.
Really, every 4 years,
yeah,
right?
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's good.
Keeps you busy, I guess.
It keeps you honest too.
Yeah.
Keeps you. You have to respond to the voters.
Well, she's been very active in every area, really, in our district, in health, mental health, particularly social services, children's issues, just active and visible, really, a lot around the area. So, just to talk about growing up here in the area, I know you went to high school here, and you went away to college, I think. But tell me about your childhood in the Pasadena area.
So, very fortunate. I grew up in San Marino. My father actually was a public servant. He worked under the Ronald Reagan administration as insurance commissioner, and when he was done with that, he went back to practicing law. So he served out a term and a half under Ronald Reagan, and then went back to the private sector because I have 3 older brothers. They started to go to college, and college is not free, so he had to go back to the private sector to earn a living to support us all. And my oldest brother went away to the Midwest, to Indiana to school, and my other 2 brothers and I went to Ohio Wesleyan, small liberal arts school outside of Columbus, Ohio. During the summer, I heard about an internship for Mike Antonovich in the Pasadena field office, which at that time was at the Pasadena courthouse. And what was neat for me is that I remember as a little girl going to the courthouse and seeing Baxter Ward's name on the door.
Okay.
And to me, Baxter Ward was a celebrity because I knew him from TV, but he was also a county supervisor who Mike defeated.
Okay.
And never dreaming that one day would be the office I would report to.
Yeah.
For 2 summers, I did that. And it really is about taking constituent calls. That is probably one of the most important jobs of any county supervisor, is responding to the constituents.
Yeah.
And I tell people that's really where I cut my teeth on public service.
Well, it sounds like you come from a tradition of public service. Your dad was in the administration, so it's gets in your blood, doesn't it?
It does, and it's one of those things where you have to really have a passion for it. But if you really focus on what your priorities are, and for my father, insurance was really his life. For me, starting with the county, I was doing health and welfare. So that is my passion. So when you talk about mental health, the homeless, I've watched this for almost 30 years.
Yeah. Well, a lot of elected officials kind of come from a different business. They come from the law, or they come from something else. But you actually were involved in policy for so many years before you actually took the leadership job. And I guess that served you well, did it?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember when we rolled out welfare reform under President Clinton. And the whole motto was get a job, get a better job, get a career.
Right.
With the goal of breaking the cycle of welfare. I was honored to work with Children's Services on family reunification, where we really front-loaded services to families in order to keep the child in the home, because all studies showed that even with a child that is not being treated in a way or is being treated in a way that's considered abuse, they still want to be with their parents.
Yeah.
So we worked on family reunification. I've worked on a lot of policy issues that I know have made a difference. The issues today are far more complicated.
Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because?
I think a lot of reasons. I think, first of all, if you look at, for example, substance abuse, with the decriminalization under Prop 47 of the use of drugs, and no longer a judge having the ability to mandate you either go into treatment or you're going to go to jail, there's a lot more people on the street that have addiction issues. Then add to that the opioid crisis and how easy it is for these kids to get opioid. It's a lot more difficult. And then methamphetamines and the permanent damage they do to a person's brain. It's creating mental health issues.
So I know we're going to dig down a lot more into that, but just while we're on it, you said things are more difficult now. In terms of mental health challenges in the legal system and the healthcare system, what are some of those? What are the big ones there?
Well, I tell people we've self-taxed ourselves in LA County, and it's called Measure H. It's a quarter-cent sales tax that's going to expire in now 8 years. Mm-hmm. And what I tell people is if we do not address the mental health component of homelessness, in 8 years, people are going to feel like they got duped. They're going to feel like we did nothing. Mm-hmm. Because, as someone who's volunteered at Union Station and who has gone around and gone to homeless shelters, especially during the holidays, there are people that you would not know are homeless. There are women and children who are living in their cars or couch surfing who don't want to be seen, who don't want to be identified as homeless. Right. The people that are causing problems are the most problematic are the mentally ill. Mm-hmm. And the laws today and the way they're structured, some of it's interpretational as it relates to law enforcement and public safety, but some of it really does have to do with the restrictions that we have on bringing people in and getting them the treatment. Right. My goal, and last year we were nearly successful but not quite finished getting it done, but this year we're going to take another bite at the apple, is looking at the definition of gravely disabled, which is a danger to self or others. Right. And look at how we can put teeth in it so that we can actually get people the help they need.
Yeah, because at this point we're looking at a 36-hour hold.
Yeah, and I mean 72 max, and 72. They're back out on the street. Yeah. And it's kind of like when you talk to people who say if you take antibiotics too much, you build a resistance. Yeah. Same thing with the people that are coming in and out of the hospital. Right. Their resistance to services, it becomes more difficult to get them the help. And a couple weeks ago, I passed a motion for the board, and every Tuesday we meet, and you can bring in motions to instruct the departments to do something. And on this one, we are looking at either building a freestanding mental health facility or partnering with the private sector to roll out mental health beds. In addition, there's a federal waiver we can apply for through the state that will actually give us money and reimburse us, which has not been done in the past, for these beds, which has always been a problem. There's never been a funding stream, and everyone asks why, I couldn't tell you.
Well, I would imagine, too, that from the taxpayer point of view, it's a lot cheaper to build adequate mental health facilities than it is to have people rotating in and out of emergency rooms and hospitals all the time and not getting treatment for what the causes are of this.
Absolutely. I have to say that when we did this motion, one of the things that I was grateful for is I was looking at it for the immediate need of getting them into the hospital. We need the step-down beds. Mm-hmm. And so because medicine is really advanced, we can treat and stabilize someone. They don't necessarily have to be in a locked facility, but we need to have a placement for them. Yeah. So when you talk about even the rotating door as it relates to revolving door as it relates to people coming in and out, we need to have a place to put them. Some of them are going to be under conservatorship. Some of these individuals are just never going to be able to be self-sufficient.
Correct.
And we have to recognize that, and we have to look at our conservatorship program as well.
Yeah. Well, let me back up a little bit, because what I also wanted to ask you about is, for some of our viewers may not really understand who the Board of Supervisors are. I don't mean personally, but what they do and what their jurisdiction is. And coming from the East Coast originally, it was kind of confusing for me because you have a county and then you have a bunch of cities. So tell us about the Board of Supervisors and their jurisdiction in LA County.
It's a very good question. A lot of people don't know. They say you're a what? Yeah. The Board of Supervisors basically has jurisdiction over 88 cities, as well as the unincorporated area. So in Pasadena, it would be Altadena, Chapman Woods. There are pockets of unincorporated areas, which means that I and my colleagues on the board are basically their city council. Yeah. In the city of Pasadena, you get 2 for 1. You get the elected officials at the city, who I work very closely with. Mayor Tornick is truly a partner as it relates to issues. And then you get me. And what the board will do in the situation with like Pasadena is we oversee health and welfare. We have about a $34 billion budget, of which a little less than 2/3 of that goes to health and welfare. If you go up to the DPSS office to get food stamps or apply for general relief or apply for welfare, that's administered through the County of Los Angeles. Okay. If, God forbid, you're in an accident and you are rushed to LA County USC, LA County USC is a county-run hospital. If you need mental health services, we contract and operate our own clinics as well for mental health services in the county. Public health and is a different animal with the city of Pasadena. City of Pasadena and Long Beach have their own public health.
Yes.
But LA County oversees public health for the entire rest
And
of the county.
also for policing, the Sheriff's
The
Department.
Sheriff's Department, we operate the largest jail in the state. Some would call it the largest mental health institution. And the sheriff, while he is elected independently, we oversee his budget.
Okay.
And so we provide all the funding for the sheriff's deputies throughout the county. In addition to that, we do the parks. Arboretum, Descanso Garden,
Yeah.
2 incredible places. I would tell everyone to go there,
Yeah.
are owned by the county.
So just to give an idea, you mentioned that the budget itself is about, you said 35 billion?
About 34.
34 billion. And then how many employees does the county have? Do you have off
We have
the
a
top
li-
of your head?
Yeah, about 108,000.
Amazing. So you're a major employer.
We are a major employer.
And then what's your relationship with the hospitals? You said LA County.
So we are, unlike Orange County, who contracts with hospitals, in LA County we operate our own facility. So we have Olive View Medical Center, which is right off the 210 in Sylmar, Rancho Los Amigos, which is a rehab center down in Downey,
Okay.
Harbor UCLA,
Yeah.
which is down off the 110 in Torrance, LA County USC,
USC, yeah.
which is in the heart of Boyle Heights,
Yeah.
and we run a full-service urgent care center up in the Antelope Valley,
Great.
Antelope Valley Health Clinic.
Yeah. And now it's the board's divided into districts. A lot of turf battles between the districts. You know, we want more money for Antelope Valley. We want that kind of thing.
No, I've been very, very fortunate. I have great colleagues. We work well together. We represent a little over 10 million total. Each one of us represents roughly 2 million people.
Yeah.
The 5th District is the largest in square miles, 2,900 square miles. A lot of that is mountain because it starts up in the Antelope Valley, comes down Santa Clarita, and then wraps its way around all the way out to Laverne. But, I'll give you an example. When we had that horrible DCFS case out in Antelope Valley, Gabriel, which made the news, it was a horrific, where the mother and boyfriend beat this child to death.
Okay.
And one of the things that we found is through that was that there was a lack of resources in our hub up there, which is a multi-jurisdictional facility where you can take children to be checked out for forensics and just across the board. And Hilda Solis was one of my biggest champions working with me to make sure we got proper funding up in the Antelope Valley. So we work well together. And it's important because it's not just about the 5th District, it's about the county as a whole.
Yeah. So we talked about mental health. We've talked about homelessness a little bit, but I wanted to get back to what you see as some of the major challenges for the county going forward. I'm thinking 5-10 years ahead. Is it fiscal? Is it demographic? I mean, what are some of the big ones?
Well, fiscal has always been a concern for me,
Yeah.
and I really do believe that just because you have the money in the bank doesn't mean you spend it. And I've been very proud of the fact that since I've worked for the county, our credit rating is now at AAA. It's at AAA because each year we set aside funding for what we call a rainy day, because the economy will go up and the economy will go down. To date, the board has been very consistent, and including when I was elected, we still put into that rainy day fund. It's important because when the economy goes down, people do not want their services to go down, and one would argue they're going to need a lot more of our services than when the economy is strong.
Just to interrupt you on that, CalPERS and those issues, the pension costs, is that impacting your fiscal planning?
So yes and no.
Okay.
Obviously, anyone that tells you a pension is 100% healthy is not telling you the truth.
Okay.
But LA County's always been one step ahead. We changed our pension policies because we knew it was not sustainable, and we had a plan AB, which we did away with.
Okay.
So now we are actually on plan E, which means that when you retire, you're not going to get this rich pension program.
Right.
But we also are encouraging 401s. So we actually have 401 matches. So we're doing a blended, if you will.
Okay.
But in addition to that, we changed on the healthcare side because that was not sustainable.
Yeah.
So new hires are now not going to be receiving the same healthcare benefits when they retire as people that are currently in the system. And as a result of those changes, because now it shows up on your books, you by law have to declare what your unfunded liabilities are. Our credit rating went up because Wall Street was very impressed with the fact that we took proactive action to address this unfunded liability.
Okay, and you're not impacted by the CalPERS? Are you?
Not
are
at
your
all.
Employees? Okay.
Not at all. I think right now, and it changes, but I think right now we're a little over either a little over 80% or just under 80% funded, which is, if you talk to anyone in the pension business, is considered good.
Good, yeah, yeah. Well, because I know that all the other entities in the state, the cities, the educational institutions, all getting hit hard by the pension costs. And
Yeah, but understand, when we changed the AB to, and I'm under a blend of DE, but when we changed it, there were those that wanted that AB because it's a darn good plan.
Yeah.
No, that is closed. That is moved.
Yeah.
And you
got to do something.
And D is one where you contribute into the pension program.
Yeah.
E is where you don't.
Yeah.
But when you retire, your pension is significantly less.
Yeah.
But the thought is that whatever you don't use to put into the pension program, you're going to be investing or setting aside.
401. So back to the challenges. I
Yeah.
mean, we talked about the fiscal ones and some of the others. What are a couple other things? I know environment is a big issue for you.
The environment is. I mean, I really do believe you have to have a balance. And open space has always been important to me because I tell people I love to hike. That is where I get my peace of mind.
Yeah.
Before I ran for office, you would see me out in the morning at about 5:30 walking. I tried to walk 4 miles every day.
Yeah.
I love to do that.
Yeah.
And so green space is important to me. And I believe we can and we are meeting that fine line between allowing development, but at the same time recognizing we need open space.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a challenge moving forward, because if you listen to the governor now, Governor Newsom, he's talking about the fact that we don't have enough housing, and is pushing for affordable housing and housing in general, because they estimate that you need about 280, I think, thousand homes a year to keep up with the growth.
Yeah.
And in some years we've been like at 28,000, and so we're playing catch up. And I just don't want to see us take away a lot of the open space.
Your point would be that they might end up developing areas that shouldn't
and
be developed.
I think that they're looking at transit-oriented development, which is where, if you look at Del Mar and Arroyo, where you have development centered around transit.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to accommodate and address a lot of the housing shortages.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a challenge for us. And I know, because my district has so much opportunity up in the Antelope Valley, I believe it can be done. But in order to have it up in the Antelope Valley, we've got to address the transit side. And I think that's going to be the greatest challenge for us moving forward.
Yeah.
We have an ambitious plan under Metro, which I sit on the Metro board, to do 28 new projects by 2028 for the Olympics. That's going to allow people to have a regional approach to transportation, with the thought that you can get from Laverne to Santa Monica without your car, and only change one or two, maybe two, but one train to get there.
So rail, basically, you're thinking.
Yes,
Yeah.
and subway. It's a blend. Purple Line, which is going down Wilshire, is going to be a subway.
What's self-driving cars going to do for us? Have you seen the studies? What does it look like?
Well, I know that Department of Transportation, this is one of their top priorities.
Yeah.
And I laugh because I get more like my parents as I get older, because I remember when my mom was talking to a friend about how you would take a plastic card and put it in a machine and get money. And my mom and her friend thought everyone was crazy.
That's right.
And now, how many people go into a bank? Their ATM card is what they use.
Yeah.
And so when I listen to people talk about these driverless cars, the next generation is going to benefit from it, but it's coming, and it's coming very quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's all kinds of disagreements and projections about what the impact's going to be. Some say good, some say bad. I'm optimistic about it, honestly. I think it can really help, particularly maybe with trucking.
Definitely with trucking. I mean, if you look at the 710, something has to give there, and I do believe that we need to do a better job of putting goods on rail and moving them out into like the high desert or into an inland port, because a lot of those goods that are leaving the docks or leaving the ports are leaving the state. But where I think it's going to really be a benefit, and it's one of the things I looked at when I thought about the 710 freeway, which was one of the first projects that I had to address when I got elected.
Yeah.
I looked at that, I took that into consideration, because that is going to change the dynamics on traffic and how people get around.
Yeah. Absolutely. We're covering a lot, but you mentioned distribution centers. I know that in Riverside County and areas like that, you're getting some really big distribution centers. Is the Antelope Valley looking at that in terms of economic development, or?
And the Antelope Valley would not be a good placement for it. No, because you would, the Antelope Valley. I mean, I shouldn't say it would not be. I mean, they do have some distribution centers up there, but it's more for companies located in LA. But when you look at like Amazon, they're on a major highway, the 10 freeway,
Right,
which is
correct.
going out.
Yeah.
If you look up at IKEA and all up there, that if you go up the Grapevine on the other side, those are going up
North.
up north. And
Yeah.
so, you know, the Antelope Valley is kind of right in between there.
Yeah.
But their opportunities in the Antelope Valley are aerospace and transit. And that's what I'm looking. I'm very excited to have Kikasharo up there, which is building our rail cars,
Yeah.
and BYD, which is building the electric car or electric buses.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a whole different industry.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. And then add to that aerospace. The Antelope Valley is definitely a place that is going to be a destination for many to raise families.
So I want to go back for a second on the environment, because there's a few hot button issues locally that might be interesting to talk about. Hahamunga, for example. I've been reading about that, and I see there are opinions on all sides about this, and I know you've probably heard a little bit about it.
I hike it. We've got a fire camp right up by JPL, and I know it very well.
Well, no, the reason I'm kidding is because I know that there's you've been to a lot of meetings and you hear about it. So
and I was a staffer when this started.
Yeah.
And what I tell people is one of the failures of Public Works, long before Mark Pestrella took the helm, was we failed to clean out the dam, Devil's Gate. And with the station fire, and then with the rains, and I think we all remember the mud coming in through Lackawanna and all, a lot of that came down and plugged up the dam.
Yep.
And for those that don't think it could happen, it has happened when a dam has failed in that area and it floods out everything below it.
Yeah.
And so Public Works came to Supervisor Antonovich at the time and said, we need to clean out Hahamunga, and an EIR is not required. You could do a negative deck on that. Mike felt that was not right. Let's do an EIR and do it the right way. No good deed goes unpunished, but it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So flash forward, when I took office, we did the EIR. They were getting ready to do the work. When I took office, met with the city of Pasadena. They had their own master plan for that area. So we downsized what was going to be the original project to meet the criteria within the EIR, so we wouldn't have to trigger a new EIR. And the work is now being done. I know there are many people that are unhappy, but I promise you this. The vegetation that was taken out is not native to the area. The game plan is and will be to bring to that area native vegetation and make it into an area that's going to be a destination for everyone to hike, including myself.
What about just the process of doing that? I mean, it's a 4-year process.
Now the issue is, and I met with some incredible parents from La Cañada, and I say incredible because they had done their homework, and they taught me a lot. The issue is going to be about the trucks and making sure they don't idle, the pollution, make sure they're clean trucks, which is part of our RFP, and then working with the state to regulate to make sure that the trucks that are coming in are certified, because I did not know this, but I guess there are some bad players out there, and the company we're working with has promised that all the trucks will meet all that criteria. So we're going to do monitoring, and it's not going to be announced monitoring, it's going to be unannounced, because on my watch, I don't want kids getting exposed to dangerous chemicals in the air. So we met with them a couple weeks ago, and with the mothers, and it was a great meeting. And so we're going to put in play some really good monitoring, and I think it's a win-win.
Great. One of my bugs is the local hiring. Are there any local hiring requirements on this project?
Yeah, absolutely. We do local hiring all the time, and it's interesting you should say that, because I went out and met with a group from Flint Ridge, and Flint Ridge does a reentry program for people, especially in the area of construction. And I met with some incredible men who really want a second chance and want to support their families, need to get a job. They're willing to get the training. That is why I support local hire.
On that subject, economic development, I mean, there's regional development, there's development within our district, Pasadena. I mean, one of the things we're seeing is that there are certain sectors, high tech and entertainment, where for high skilled workers there are a lot of opportunities. They're making good money, but there are other areas like construction, retail, places like that, where it's tough to raise a family. One of the hardest things I think in our area or any place that's doing so well is to find the mid-skill jobs that pay enough so that people can make a living.
Construction, they do very well.
They do well, yeah.
As a matter of fact, the biggest challenge, and I told the gentleman I was talking to at Flint Ridge,
yeah,
they're guaranteed a job. I remember when I was younger, if you wanted to be a nurse,
yeah,
you were guaranteed a job.
yeah, yeah.
Now, if you go into construction, whether it be electrical, plumbing, certified in being able to survey,
Yeah.
we need you.
Yeah.
With the Measure M, which is the metro and the transportation I was talking about, all these projects, our biggest dilemma is finding the labor to get it done.
Well, this is this can be a bit of a tough issue, because I know that that there are guys who have their own construction firms, for example, but then because of immigrant or low-skilled labor, they get undercut in their businesses, and so a lot of them have lost their businesses as a result of that. The other thing is that you're not getting the kind of government spending on infrastructure that you might have had. I know you're doing that in this project, but construction tends to be very cyclical, I think. So it's true that if you have a decent job, high-skilled job in the construction trades, yes, but then there's a lot of other like independent contractors and folks like that don't do so well. I do think there is, in Pasadena we see this too, that there's a kind of the haves and the have-nots in terms of wages. So what are your thoughts about some of that stuff?
Well, obviously, there's two thoughts there.
Yeah.
Number one, unions do not discriminate against. If you've got a green card or a working card, they will allow you to come in. Right. For those that have their own business, it is tough.
Yeah.
And one of the things we've looked at, and actually Tyrone Hampton's on Small Business Commission for me, and one of the issues that we have is hiring at least 25% that are small business owners.
Yeah.
And that is across the board. But what we're looking at is the fact that I'm told that we're almost keeping them in that category, so there's no incentive for them to grow. So we're looking at how we can encourage them to grow, but not penalize them when they fall out of that small business category.
Yeah.
So as it relates to construction, remember this: Measure M is ongoing. We estimate we're going to have projects going for another 40 years.
Great. I always believe, and I'm sure you agree, that investments in infrastructure are the best kind of investments you can make. It's like fixing the roof on your house. Mm-hmm. I would think it'd be great if the feds would do more infrastructure investment as well. Anyway, we're going to talk about this a lot more in the next segment.
I can't
We're going to talk about education. We're going to talk about all sorts of things.
You're going to educate me.
I'm just
Okay.
You're educating me now. Okay. So we're just getting started.
Great.
And I really appreciate your being here. It's just a treat to talk to you.